Hey everyone, back for the final game of our league with Eldrazi Ramp, or Green-Red Eldrazi, Gruul Eldrazi, if you will. Um, Quick look at the list for those of you who want to look at it. Talk about it more in the previous two videos. So if you are curious about some of the decisions and the numbers and where I got the list from, you can watch the previous ones. But um, one thing missing here is there is no Kessig Wolf run, which might be a mistake. I'm curious to try that. There's also only 3 and 2 of some of our payoffs. We have 4 rings, 4 sewing microspawns, the 2 returns in the main. So we will go ahead and jump right in and queue up. We have our loss was to a Boros energy deck, but it wasn't the typical aggression one. We beat Storm and Mono Black and another deck that I'm forgetting currently. But I know that we beat it. I'll go ahead and try. Everything opens up on this hand. Interesting. I think this is a keep. I think it's a keep. It's not our favorite hand, but it's okay. I think we might actually open on like basic forest stirrings before exiling this to a lab. The upside of exiling this to a lab is it sets us up for. Well, we can't turn 2 sewing because we need the green. Yeah, I think we're just gonna stirrings no matter what. Going to look back at my other video to remember exactly what it was that we faced. Oh, Scred Red, that's right. So we have faced 2 decks with main deck Blood Moon. We face a deck with main deck land removal. This is tempting. With playing Break the Ice and Demolition Fields and Field of Ruins. So I think it's a pretty good showing for our deck to grind out and beat these decks that are essentially attacking one of our main upsides of our deck is having, ramp in our lands. I think it's one ring here. There could be a debate for taking the second World Breaker because we could go Temple Lab, Rumble. But I think one ring's strong enough here, and what we're, you know, trying to mitigate is any sort of, what's it called? We don't want to flood. So one ring will help make sure that doesn't happen. So I think next turn it's going to be Eldrazi Temple Rumble, which can set us up to either ring or Michael Spawn, depending on what we think is better. Our opponent's deck likely is a blue-red Murktide list. If it's playing Bauble, it's usually a pretty good sign they're playing Darcy or Dragon Rage Channeler. But it's actually Grixis. So it's a Grixis Murktide. We don't really want Psychic Frog to get going. This is going to be very important and is a good draw, but we'll cast this. Shoot. I think we're taking the Emrakul here. Our rings aren't likely to resolve, whereas we can make this uncounterable. It also puts an artifact in the graveyard. So, win-win there. We cannot do anything else. I'll probably chump block with this to not let them draw cards because they did have to mole, so they're down at 3. And I can still Michael Spawn with Cavern next turn. And I think that that's worth it because that ramps us as well. We'll get another temple going. We would have been fetching up the Cavern with Michael Spawn if we didn't draw it. And that way, even if they did have a counter spell for it, we'd still go get Cavern for our next spell not to be countered. But obviously, this is a pretty good line for us. I wouldn't be surprised to see fetch Fatal Push happen, but we're still trading card for card and going up a land, which I'm fine with. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I get this, I'm at 6. So next turn I can World Breaker even without exiling Emrakul. So that's great. That's what our plan is. And this is where, having played counterspell decks, it's so annoying that they made all these things cast triggers. Obviously, after sideboard, we really want to win this game because after sideboard they get, 4, probably 3 at least, consigned to dust, which can counter our triggers as well as our creatures. And so we still can cavern our creature, but they will be able to counter the triggers on Emrakul, the trigger on... Does the trigger also stop the extra turn? Yeah. So that's okay. He still comes out as a 13/13 with flying and trample. So yeah, we might not end up even casting One Rings. And after seeing exactly what they're doing, I probably should have taken that other World Breaker. Because, like I said, Cavern can make this uncounterable, but it can't make our One Ring uncounterable. They're digging with Expressive Iteration. One of the, probably the key reason to splash red in this deck, although, like I said, it probably has Darcy and maybe Bolts as well, or Unholy Heat. I wouldn't be surprised to see them just jump the frog, as we call it. Exile 3 cards to give them flying, to make sure they get to draw another card. But after we get this out, one little line there that a lot of people miss is it has reach, so they won't be able to fly over it. Unholy Heat. Luckily, this dodges heat, although our Michael Spawn does not. So yeah, they did jump the frog. I cannot block. We obviously would have. Even if they discarded cards and killed our Soaking Michael Spawn, we'd take that for sure. We'd trade cards for Michael Spawn when we're about to World Breaker. So we got an uncounterable World Breaker. I think we're gonna hit the Watery Grave because they likely don't. They can't get a basic swamp, so to have black mana, they're gonna have to shock again, or they probably play Thoughtseize. Is it worth tucking the Emrakul just to protect it? 6, 7. Next turn, I won't be able to Emrakul even if we hit another 7 or plus because I need 10 mana for it right now. Although if they do kill my Michael Spawn, then I would only need 9. I think I'm going to just keep the Emrakul in my hand because we have a chance of casting it next turn. And I don't need it this turn. See, I wish Magic would just say, hey, you have 7 mana in your pool and you just cast a 7 mana spell. You probably want to spend that mana on this spell, right? Especially the specific Eldrazi mana for an Eldrazi spell, right? Like, can't we just add this up? But alas, it does not. And again, a big plus to getting this resolved is it dodges pretty much all the removal. They could maybe like double heat it, but they don't even have, yeah. It's going to be really hard for them to kill this, and it might involve them trading the Psychic Frog for it, which we're fine with because late game I can just sack a land to get this back, which I'm fine with. So I assume they're getting another Watery Grave, yeah, or the Undercity Sewers. Another black source here. If this was another World Breaker, it would feel great. As is, we can go for a big Kozilek's Command or Ring next turn, or we draw, if they kill something, one of our creatures, and we draw another 7 plus CMC spell, we can even go for Emrakul, which would probably lock the game out, but that's pretty slim that will happen. But good news is we're not really under pressure. We have the pressure on the board. We have a handful of cards to match their handful of cards, and we have very powerful cards. So we're not sitting here with a bunch of sprawls and talismans. We're doing okay. They looked at their own card? Yeah. They targeted themselves with Bobble. They've been to Goyf, which is interesting. Wonder if they're trying to set up for a big Murktide here. Although it won't be that big because they don't have a lot of instants and sorceries. Just one sorcery. Yeah, no attacks. Stop that frog from generating value. They likely have multiple counterspells, so we can't Emrakul this turn. Question is, do I want to... I think I passed the turn and Kozilek's Command on their upkeep. That's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to get Commercial District here. Don't really need red mana against their deck. Obviously, we could do a Kozilek's Return would require them to discard a card, but I think I want to just keep my life total high and have as much mana as possible. And I'm going to swing with the Michael Spawn. Offer the trade for 2 cards, that's fine, or a block and an Unholy Heat. Unholy Heat would just kill it out right now. Interesting. Okay. We discarding cards here? Yep. 1, 2. Oh, discarding a Murktide. Interesting. So I don't think this is going to resolve. I don't think one of these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana if I use it on this. I guess I could tap these 4 lands for 1 ring and still have a Kozilek's Command for 2 on their upkeep. This is what we're going to do. We're going to try to get some of their counter spells out of their hand. Because we can Emrakul next turn, so this is just forcing them to do stuff. I guess I'll just go for Kozilek's Command now. They could have Force and Negation. Yeah, but if they force and they're down to 0 cards, I think that's fine. We're going to exile their creature. Do I want to draw or just make dudes? I think because we for sure have enough for Emrakul next turn, we're just going to do this. And again, if this doesn't resolve, that's okay. We've gotten through most of the cards in their hand, and we have a bigger creature than them, and we're going to get to Emrakul next turn, so not really worried. If this does resolve, we're in a great place. Even better. We'll top the Michael Spawn. Could take them off black mana if we so desire. Well, we did get the frog after they discarded 2 cards to it, so that was pretty great trade-off for us. We traded 1 card for another card and getting rid of theirs plus 2, and got a counterspell out of their hand. Pretty successful turn. Excuse me, that probably was still loud. I'll try to mute myself better next time I cough, but this is how you want to play against counterspell control decks. Especially the frog decks now are actually more of a tempo deck than a control deck. If you can keep frog, if you can disable their frog card draw, they usually fall behind pretty quick. So that should be your focus. Obviously, big Murktides can be scary, and it seems like that's probably what he's casting right now. But not really concerned with that because we all have Emrakul. We can suicide the Murktide into our Emrakul, which will be great. Yeah. They left up their black mana, which is interesting, but no Thoughtseize. I don't think, like, you're not going to spell snare me, you know, like, I don't know. We could, we could World Breaker this turn, but I'm pretty sure this is just going to be lights out. We got the Eldrazi spell in the bin too, so it went up. We are definitely going to make you uncounterable. We'll go like that, I guess. Yeah, that's game. I was going to get to swing with World Breaker anyway, and he probably wasn't going to block, and then... Yeah. We were in good shape. So, sideboard. Interesting. Because we have Cavern, we're pretty well set up against this deck. We could maybe Trinisphere. I mean, their deck is trying to capitalize on having cheap spells and casting multiple spells a turn. I'll close this out. You know, other than what? Murktide. But even Murktide, they're not even spending 3 mana to cast it most of the time. They have the red splash, so maybe even more so this is better because they are playing Heats, and like I said, they have the Baubles and the Darcy, so I think we're going to bring in Trinisphere. I don't know. It's hard. So the downside of something like this, just to kind of talk through my thought process, this is a do nothing card. If this resolves, but they already have a frog on board, and we don't have a threat, it doesn't really do anything there. But if we get this down on turn 2, it makes their bowmasters, frogs, subtleties, force negations, especially consigned to memory being a big concern for our deck. It's like, I'm looking at like potential sideboards. They're probably bringing in break the ice and consign the memory. Um, Maybe a toxic deluge. This doesn't do anything against that, but I think we'll slow down enough things. I think this is worth it. I think it's worth it. Although we didn't see bowmasters, but they probably play it. They did see ring. And the flashback does 5 damage. Probably isn't going to kill Murktide most of the time, but will kill most frogs. I think I like keeping in some amount of answers to frog. I want to keep in most of my ramp. I feel like ring is actually one of the weaker cards in this matchup. Just because it gets hit by so much. We'll trim a ring, trim a K command. Again, I'm not sure about my sideboarding. You can yell at me if you want. I think Bajuka Bog is worth it in this matchup. It's a much slower matchup. Don't really want to cut a Sanctum, though. Maybe I just go up a land. Maybe I just go up a land. Down another Rumble. Something like this. I want to keep my Sprawls and Talismans for potential Trinispheres. I want to keep my, 7+ cost because I want Ugin's Lab active. I almost want to bring this in. Another uncounterable spell versus Kozilek command. Maybe I should cut another ring. We'll see. We are leading the match, so there is that. Of course, we got our K returned. I mean, I guess this hand is fine into Frog. We're not going to get an early Trinisphere, but yeah, this is fine. Turn 1, Ancient Stirrings. Turn 2, Rumble. We'll dig for good stuff. They probably don't expect us to keep this in, but we'll see. That's a decent draw, actually, but still want to lead on Stirrings, I believe. Well, unlike Rumble, these aren't going to the graveyard, so we don't really have to consider card types or whatever. It's just a matter of what is our best play. Next turn we can't Myco spawn, so we're probably just rumbling, although we could Temple. We can't return. Maybe oh, my bad. I probably should have gotten Stomping Ground. But if we're not casting that, we're rumbling, or I could just Talisman next turn. Breaker and Emrakul are just so far off, but I also don't want to flood. And Talisman, because I do have a red source, even though it's slow. If he plays Frog next turn, I'll just play Commercial District and pass. Yeah, this should have been a Stomping Ground. That was a mistake. This is 8 mana. This is probably going to be more than 8 mana, so I'm going to take the Breaker. And again, this might be incorrect. We'll see how the game plays out. If I wish I had taken that Talisman or something else. He's probably reading this. It's a good card against him. The life gain will be relevant. Hexproof is relevant. Annihilator is very relevant. So I'm far off from casting it, but Temple helps. So this is a frog. I have to Commercial District, which doesn't feel great, but it is what it is. Guess I could Rumble to block. He's going to have 2 cards in the bin. Targeted me, so he knows what this card is coming up. I have some other red. Oh, look at that. It is another red source. With this, I'm going to Shock in and Rumble. I think the Rumble's worth, even though this is only going to block 1 damage, potentially. Next turn we can Myco Spawn or Kozilek's Return, depending on what they do. I think we take the World Breaker. We already have 5 types in the bin, which is nice. So I guess this would cost the same as Emrakul right now because we hit a Kozilek's Command and the Utopia Sprawl. But couldn't bank on that. Yeah, I think we're chump blocking into Kozilek's Return. Playing up the Temple. Nope, they stopped us from chump blocking. Look at that. We traded a Heat for a Eldrazi Scion token. That's how much he wants to draw a card. I mean, this isn't gonna kill this, right? It just makes him discard a card, but then we're gonna get the flashback. Is why we want to get this out of our hand. In fact, if the Rumble hit a return, we wouldn't be casting it. Lab's a decent pickup here, honestly. If I Michael Spawn this turn, and I get a Temple, I'll be at 2, 4, 6, and I'll be at 8. I could actually break her next turn. I think that's probably our best line. This will likely get... Oh, no, I can't. I don't want to get Temple. I want to get Cavern of Souls, because this will get countered. I forgot about counter magic, so... But we'll still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll actually tuck the breaker and cast a World Breaker, because we need something. We need something to stop this frog. This is going to get counterspelled. Or... Maybe it's Consign Replicate. If it's Consign Replicate, that's rough for us. Yeah. Okay. You got us. No Cavern. This card is my least favorite card. Every deck I play is weak to Consign. I was playing Mono Blue Belcher, and it counters both Belcher and the trigger on Thassa's Oracle. So it's just like a one mana answer either of my combos, and obviously I was playing Eldrazi aggro, which this is great against, and now I'm playing this Eldrazi deck, and it's just like it counters. Just no one gets to have fun with Consigned to Memory out there. At the same time, because Karn and One Ring are a thing, you have to have something like this, or else One Ring just. I mean, One Ring's already dominating the format. If you want my opinions on that, you can listen to my metagame video about the bans. How every deck is just going to be playing the 4 of the One Ring going forward. So what's our play here? 1, 2, 3, 4. We're only at 6 mana by exiling one of these. So next turn we'll be at 7. Maybe we Sanctum next turn. Sanctum this turn. We can decide next turn which to play. And then we go get a... what's it called? Sower again. Sowing Microspawn because we really want to get a... we're going to return just to get it in the graveyard and force him to discard a card. Anyways, so next turn, I'm going to cast World Breaker. I'm going to sack this to go get a Sowing Microspawn so that I can hopefully... this probably means he has Consign, but it's still probably as good a time as any to try to resolve this return. And eating a Consign... Oh, why didn't I get priority again? That was annoying. Oh, it is what it is. This eating a Consign is fine. I'm gonna let it kill. Oh, interesting. Well, we'll take that 1 for 1. Well, 2 for 1. We got them to discard a second frog to save their current one. That's okay. This might be a big Murktide turn, holding up Counterspell. We're not in a great place, by the way, if you haven't picked up on that. We are going to continue making the best plays we can, but a frog just runs away with the game. Like I said, you really need... Oh, he had a third one. That's why he discarded a frog. We really need something to resolve, and it's not likely to resolve because of... We have 7 if we exile. So yeah, I think we're going for a breaker. Breaker Creation would gain us life next turn, but we're doing this. We're not excited to do it, but it's all we can. I mean, we could go for Ring, but that's definitely not resolving. Oh, I forgot. This triggers. That's why we wanted this in the graveyard. So we have a lot of abilities here, but he can't consign everything, right? Oh, I have to choose a target. He's equal amount of red and blue mana, so I think it really matters. We are gonna do Kozilek's Return. He has to respond to this now. So if he consign, he fetch shock or fetch a basic 1, 2, 3. He can consign. We're gonna still get our Sanctum trigger at least. I assume is what's gonna happen, because if you haven't figured it out yet, your opponent always has consigned to memory when you play Eldrazi. If they're playing blue and it's after sideboard, they always have it in their hand 100% of the time until all 4 are in the graveyard. You always have to fight through it. So here we go. There is some debate to like don't sack this and just try to reuse our World Breaker, but I think the upside of trying to get a Soy, because he has to have exactly consigned to memory to stop our Myco spawn from getting a Cavern, and once we get Cavern, we'll actually get creatures into play. He let us take the land. Okay, that's fair. He's kind of flooded. Instead of the Sanctums. Well, we don't even have the option, so there you go. There you have it. I don't have enough mana where I can return this and cast it in the same turn, obviously. So we're probably going to be going to a game 3 here. 2 frogs is hard to beat. And right now we're at a place where essentially next turn we are forced to try to resolve a 1 ring. Our only play, depending on what we draw. This one turn we're drawing a Cavern of Souls wouldn't actually be that helpful. Ironically, every other turn we would have loved it. What's our best draw here? Probably just another Sowing Michael spawn. He kept a card top, so we assume he just preordained into a consign. It's buffing up one of his frogs, so we're dead next turn. Or sorry, we just took damage. We could be dead next turn or the turn after, depending on how he decides to play it. So, like I said, in a rough spot. This is way too late. Now, what did I take out? Would it have felt much better to have a Rumble right now? Maybe a Kozilek's Command. Neither of them were going to resolve, so not that much of a difference. The One Ring. Counter spell. Play this out. We could try to go for Transfer, but obviously that doesn't really matter right now. Graveyard. So our only play is return this to hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll have exactly 8 mana next turn. But he's probably not going to resolve, but I'll get to gain, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 life. He has 3, 4. He could just discard all his cards and kill us here. I don't want to pass through the turn. Which he should do. I don't think there's any card we could have that would be able to stop him from doing that. So he should just discard four cards and hit us for exactly 8. But I get that it's a little scary to do when you're the control deck against a big Eldrazi deck to just like discard your hand. But I don't think there is a single card we could have. I guess we could have Dismember. But again, if he just starts discarding on the one that's already big, no, because then we could just hit the weaker one and be at 1 life. Oh no, because we'd have to pay 4 life for Dismember. So yeah, I'm surprised. Okay, he's not. He was going to blocks. Again, there's nothing we could play with Flash that only costs 2. So yeah, if we could have dismembered, I suppose. On this, it would cost 4 life, but then it makes -5, so we could have like lived at 1. But anyway. Hmm. Do I want one less ring, one more Kozilek's command? It's a little more flexible, I think. I think ring's probably just bad in this matchup. I don't think it's ever resolving. We're probably not getting up to 15 mana either. Another Kozilek's return, maybe? Getting one in the graveyard is an upside. I don't know. It's hard to say what is exactly right. I haven't seen the Darcy, and so I'm wondering if the red splash is just heat and what does this hand do? This hand does Utopia Sprawl. It could turn into a Kozilek's return. It doesn't feel great. I think maybe we're mulliganing a like this is a okay 7. I guess we get the flashback on return pretty quick as well. Because we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're gonna mull. We really would like to see, yeah, there we go, a way to get Cavern of Souls. This is great. We obviously don't need a second Trinisphere, so we're gonna do that. We get to reveal this, which is great. But it does mean we don't want to fetch if we like our top card. So let's look at this. I can Ugin's Lab this turn. Next turn, fetch a forest, play Trinisphere. I think I'm just taking a land. The Stirrings and the Utopia Sprawl aren't great with this, and with another land I can cast my Spawn to get Cavern, which is a good line. I don't need another fetch, so we'll just leave a forest on top. I'll yield to this. We'll tuck the Devourer. We like World Breaker over Devourer like 90% of the time. Actually, against this deck, this hits a frog where this, although a good blocker, the removal of the lands, and he's not really playing other permanents that we care about. I think we actually want to tuck the World Breaker. So next turn we draw the Forest, we cast Trinisphere, and then the following turn we go for Myco Spawn for Cavern. And so, I mean, we kind of force him to, what, have Consign for Trinisphere? It looks like he has... No Consign. But he's emptying his hand. Okay. We can take a few hits from this. I think this is going to be... Oh, of course he has double Bauble. Feels bad to have the Trinisphere sitting here doing nothing. But he saw that we were going to draw a Forest, which is no big deal. He does draw a few extra cards here, but he won't be able to do anything to stop us getting our Cavern into play. So that's the biggest thing. That this Trinisphere is going to happen. And so this is why, we brought it in. It protects us. He could have Force the negation, I suppose. Maybe I don't know. He does. Well, there you go. I didn't see Force, and it seems odd to keep it in. I guess he saw Ring. So now he could have Consign Replicate to stop us from getting our beautiful Cavern of Souls. Kept one top. Yep. They always have Consign. So this threat is far less scary than a Frog, although it is going to kill us faster. It means he has less answers, but this is going to hit... I don't think a red source is worth it at this point. Try to just go for Rumble. There's part of my brain that tells me force him to have it. Like, force him to have the Consign. Go get a Cavern. But if he does Consign the trigger, I just have a 3/3 that can't block his 3/4. And I kind of wasted my chance. Rumble could dig for something good and fills my graveyard. He likely doesn't have anything that can counter Rumble. And then I do have a token to ramp or chump with, so I think this might be the better play. I wonder what they're thinking about now. Force negation. What did he exile? Sink to stupor. Probably one of. This is not exciting. Guess we got that in the graveyard, which is okay. We'll take the Sprawl. We'll attempt to cast the Sprawl. Pass the turn. One, two, three, four. I guess now we're 1 mana away from casting this Devour, so top deck a land. We'd love to just top deck our Cavern of Souls, would just be so pretty. I assume, so yeah, I think we take the hit here. Try to get this into play, and at the very least, we can do kicked Michael Spawn, which he's just going to replicate twice, but where do we go for this first? I can go for this first. I guess Counterspell and Consign and whatever. Let's do this, I suppose. It's hard. I'm not sure what the exact best is. What, you know, it all depends on what his hand is, but we'll see if we can get something resolved here. I assume we're going to see a fetch into Consign all, you know, both triggers and the Michael Spawn, which is why Consign sucks. But I think just playing one ring into the Consign is kind of lame because he also could just counterspell it, still holding the Consign in hand. And like I said, we do have to wear through him eventually, but it feels bad that he had the force for our Trinisphere. And, you know, this Goyf is going to kill us in 3 turns, so it is what it is. Consigned to memory, so fun. Such fun design. 1 card, destroy an entire deck. Well, no, destroy like 6 entire decks, but it is what it is. I'd much rather get Thoughtseeds and Griefed than face this card. Opponent at least has only, you know, wasted 2.5 extra minutes of our time. We've sat here thinking about plays for a long time too, so like this has not been my fastest match, and they are still significantly behind on clock. Don't know what it is about playing blue, but it just makes people take forever to take their turns. He's got a surgical, what? Our Michael Spawn? Or maybe he takes the Kozilek's return? He's worried about that. We need exactly Eldrazi Temple to be able to cast Devour, so we're likely just throwing out this 1 ring to get countered next turn. If we draw another Michael Spawn, we can try to go for Cavern. If we draw... We have a lot of dead draws. Our big cards are dead draws. If we draw like Kozilek's Command, we probably just throw the ring out. Yeah. I assume they have another Consign in hand. And or a land, because with plus Counterspell, because I doubt they'd be casting Iteration if they didn't have a 1 mana answer to whatever we cast next turn. Yeah, they're hitting the Michael Spawn. That's fair. Oh, he sees our hand. Exiles our Michael Spawns. At this point, we had 2 Michael Spawns and then the Cavern left, so we were, you know, twice as lucky. It gave us 3 draws at Cavern, whereas now we only have 1 draw at Cavern. So it is, I think it's worth it for him to do that. Eldrazi Temple would be great. Nope. Can't do that. Because I'm holding a basic forest, I'm going to keep up a colorless mana. Don't know what's actually needs colorless. I mean, there you have it. Had the other consign, so that's 2 consigns and a forest are down for the count. Now any land we can cast Devour. So he'll need exactly a 3rd consign in order to save the Goyf. He won't be able to flash it back, but if he plays, I assume this is a turn where we see like a Frog or a Murktide come down to close out the game. If he doesn't have another threat, a land would be great here, and we have a chance. We have a chance. Let's see. Show me a 3rd consign to memory. I guess, yeah, he needs exactly consign twice. He has to counter this, and then, oh, wow. What is this? What is this, sorcery? Just getting counterspelled. Yeah, that's fair. We're gonna say no to this, obviously. We're gonna keep that in the graveyard. Interesting. So I assume our opponent's hand is like heat, some combination of like counterspell and heat, maybe another force of negation. Any creature he would have already played, any baubles or iterations he would have already played. Guess there's an off chance he's holding another surgical. But is this a Murktide? Yeah. Oh no, charmaw. That makes sense in red mana to expect that. Maybe does he play that and break the ice or play that over break the ice? Probably play that over break the ice. There's upsides and downsides. This is clunky. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're dead unless we draw exactly Eldrazi Temple. Or somehow resolve our second ring, right? We still have, no, we only had one in. Yeah, we don't really have a lot of lines here. This thing has flying, so kept a card top, so he has another consigned to memory enemy. Anyway, so that will be our game. We're gonna finish 3-2. It's interesting. I wonder if the whole meta is like this now, or if we've just been, faced particularly rough decks in that every deck we played has had main deck land removal, more sideboard land removal, and and discard and or counter magic. Going forward, after playing around, is there anything I want to change? Sorry, MTGO is being really wonky right now. I am curious about, I've seen this with Keswick Wolf Run, right, as a finisher. Maybe this list just doesn't need it. I didn't really feel like I needed a Keswick Wolf Run ever. I did feel like I wanted more caverns, maybe. Obviously the one of us saying like, well, I can go get it with Song Michael Spawn. I have all this card draw and Ancient Stirrings and Rumbles to get to the cavern, but maybe I want it instead of the second Sanctum. I'd play a second cavern. For the matchups you want it, you want more caverns, whereas obviously chaining Sanctums feels good, but yeah, I might just try something like this. I don't think we have 4 to go up to like 4 of them. I like having the basics if you're going to play sprawls. I feel like, any other cuts, you're probably changing the deck too much. I was thinking about like a deck that cuts sprawl, plays less basics, and plays more talismans. Like just play more green talismans. But I think this is, a pretty strong card. And having basics is just good in modern. Like that's the only reason we were able to win against the, 8 Demolition Field, Field of Ruin deck. Apparently, I just need to go like add 3 more Pyroclasms to the sideboard because having 5 was not enough against the deck where we wanted it. I think that these cards are great. I'm not sold on the Bog. I'm not sold on the Might. I am sold on these for sure. I might cut these 2 and go up on Breaker, honestly, and go up on Might. Maybe 2 of each of those. But like I said, we do. It's like when we wanted to return, we didn't draw it. We didn't, and maybe we cut too much of our card selection. Like our rumbles can't hit returns, so I think we cut those though. Anyways, keeping our other card draw. Maybe we're cutting World Breakers at some point. I think we already trimmed on Devour in that matchup, but that's what I'm thinking right now. And I will do another league. Yeah, let me know your thoughts, concerns, interesting anecdotes in the comments.